Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we are going to look into a new chapter on self-assessment for companies, limited liabilities partnership, trust body or cooperative societies. Alright, so this chapter will look into the responsibility of a company with regards to their tax payment. Yeah, so we are concentrating on companies, so we are going to look at, for example, what are the things that company has to fulfill, alright, their obligation, alright, throughout the year of assessment. Alright, so let's go back. For example, when talking about a company, right, with a year end of 31st of December, let's assume it's 2019. Right, year end 31st December 2019, and now it's 2020. So when is the deadline for the company to submit their Form C? Right, so company are required under the law to submit their Form C within or by end of the 7th month of the following year. So it means that if your year end is 31st of December 2019, it means that the company has to submit their Form C, alright, by 31st of July 2020. So the period given for the company to prepare their accounts is 7 months. And we say that it's by 31st of July, not on 31st of July. So the company can submit earlier, but what happened in Malaysia that we love to submit on time. Alright, we submit on the day. So everyone submit on the 31st of July, and then they complain the system hang, right? So by right, they have to submit by 31st of July. So what happened on 31st of July, the company are required to submit Form C and to settle any tax liability. Alright, so if the company has any balance of tax liability, for which YA? You are looking at YA 2019 because we are referring to this basis period which start from 1st January 2019. Yeah, so your period is from 1st January 2019 ends on 31st of December. And this is YA 2019, and you have to submit your Form C 7 months after the closing of year end, and the submission must be by the end of the 7th month. So in this case, it's 31st July. So if your year end is 30th of June, then the submission day for your Form C is by 31st of January of the following year. Yeah, so that's how it works. So is that all the responsibility? No. Alright, because remember that we are already under self-assessment system. It means that the company have to self-assess their tax liability. How to self-assess? It means that the company have to come out with their own amount of their tax liability. So of course, it's very difficult to do that. So what we do is that we come out with an estimate. Alright, how much is the estimated tax liability for YA 2017? In this case, 2019. Alright, you have to come up with the estimate of your tax liability for YA 2019. Okay, so in terms of the responsibility, alright, let's look at number 1. Company are required to, number 1, submit an estimate. An estimate of tax liability of YA, in this case 2019, alright, or in the case of any year of assessment, alright, 1 month. Okay, 1 month prior to start of basis period. So when is your basis period starts? In this case, you start on 1st of January 2019. Okay, so you start on 1st January 2019, and the law requires you to submit an estimate of tax liability for 2019 1 month before you start. So in this case, when is your 1 month? 1st of December. Can be my student. Okay, 1st of December. So when you say the by, alright, 1 month. So it means that you can submit earlier than 1st of December. But can you submit after 1st December? No. Why submit later, penalty. Alright, and remember that penalty is a cost to the company. So company will have to oblige to the first requirement, submit estimate of tax liability 1 month prior to start of basis period. So if your year-end basis period starts on 1st of January, so you have to submit by 1st of December. Is that clear? Yeah. So you have to submit an estimate. Number 2, how much is the estimate? Right? This is not a requirement, I cancel. So how to decide on the estimate? How much? Can you estimate accurately? Because you're talking about estimating your future tax liability. And your tax liability depends on your income and expenses. And then you have to do adjustment, you have your capital allowances, you may purchase new asset for the following year. Right? You may have a lot of donations, for example. So in that case, things are very uncertain, right? So that's why the name is estimate. You have to come up with an estimate. So the law suggests that, not suggests, that the law requires, alright, a company to submit an estimate based on the previous year, right? So historically, alright. So the amount of estimate must be at least, yeah, at least 85% of previous, immediately previous, right? We say that immediately preceding year, right? Preceding year of, tak sedap ya dia. It must be at least 85% of the previous year estimate. You put that estimate first, alright? So means that in the previous year you have come up with an estimate that you submitted to Inland Revenue Board. For in this case, previous year you submit estimate for 2018, and now you want to submit for 2019, right? So what happened is that how much is it? It must be at least 85% of your 2018 estimate. So assuming that your estimate previous year is 100,000, so this year your estimate must be at least 85,000. Alright, means that you can submit 100,000, you can submit 200,000, but it must be more than 85,000 because why? It must be at least 85% of the previous estimate. Yeah? But at the same time, if in the previous year you do have some revision, alright? Initially you submit 100,000, but then during the year, in the previous year, you revise your estimate. So later we look into the issue of revision. Can you revise? Yes, you can revise. So in this case, if the company in the previous year make a revision to their estimate, then the current year estimate must be based on the most recent revised estimate. Yeah? So it means that if there is no revise, then you go back to the original estimate. But if there is a revision, then you have to follow at least 85% of the revised estimate. Is that clear? Right. So, so that's number 1. So you must come up with the amount, right? And of course, in the question, they will give you the scenario, and that means that you will also be able to decide how much is the estimate for the current year. So let's look at an example whereby in the previous year, your estimate was 100,000. You revised to 120,000. Okay? But for 2019, the accounts department foresee that your tax liability would only be 80,000. 80,000. Yeah? Because they say that based on their forecast of sales, expenses, all these things, cost of living, everything, alright? So they say that, oh, tax liability for 2019 is only 80,000. So in this case, right, you have 3 figures, isn't it? So let's see. You do have an original estimate of how much is it? 100,000. Okay? And then you also revise to 120,000, but the accounts department say it's only 80,000. So what would be your, for this one is for 2018. And this one revised for 2000. Sorry. Estimate. How is it? The accounts project that tax liability for 2019 will be 80,000. So how much is the estimate that you're going to submit to Inland Revenue Board for 2019? Nak yang mana?
Revision.
Alright, you have to refer to revision. Okay, it has to be the revision amount, and this must be at least 85%. Right, for 2019. So how much is that? 85% of 120? 100 or 2,000. So 102,000, it means that the company must submit for YA 2019 an estimate of at least 102,000. So even though the company projects estimate liability to be 80,000, not allowed. You cannot submit the 80,000. But if the company projects to be 180,000, can you submit 180,000? Yes. Why? Because that 180,000 is more than 102,000. Right? So now you know that, okay, for 2019, your tax liability, estimate of your tax liability would be, in this case, how much? Let's take it as 102,000. Okay. Good. Once you know that, okay, that's your tax liability, the estimate of tax liability for 2019. Next, of course, now what you have to do is that you have to pay installment payment. Right? So it means that if you look at the business, right? Your business is 1st January 2019. Year end is 31st of December 2019. We're talking about YA 2019. So the law requires, number one, what is the requirement? You have to submit estimate here. Right? 1st of December 2018. Prior to the beginning of your business period. So here, 1st December, you have to submit your estimate. And how much is your estimate? 102,000. And the law requires that, number 2 is that you have to pay your installment payment and put here monthly installment payment. What do you mean by monthly installment payment? You have to pay every month. For how many months? 12 months. Right? So bila 12 months, so whatever estimate that you have here, you're going to divide into 12. Yeah? So how much is per month? 8,500 ringgit. So per month you have to pay to Inland Revenue Board 8,500 ringgit. Alright? When do you have to pay? Monthly. When is the first payment? First installment payment? January? Tak, kita bagi chance lah. So company whereby your first installment payment always start on the second month. Second month of your business period. Kenapa sebut second month? Kenapa tak sebut pay in February? Yeah, because year end of a company different. If your year end is 31st December, of course your second month is February. But your year end is 30th of June, your second month is August. Right? Alright. So one is that you have to pay installment on a monthly basis, and then the first installment starts on the second month, and each installment, number 5, berapa each installment tadi? 8,500, right? Each installment for 12 months must be by 15 of each month. What do you understand by that? By 15 of February, 15 of March, by, not on. Okay? By 15 of March, by 15 of February. February, March, April, May, June. So when is the 12th payment? When is the 12th payment? Alright? So this will be by 15 of February is your first payment, 2019. It means that that your 12th payment will be by 15th of January 2020. Okay? So this is your 12th payment. So look at the company. You start in February, right? February, March, April sampai until January. Bila masuk 15 February, you dah buat apa ni? You bayar lagi tak? Don't pay. You don't pay for 2019, but you pay for the first payment for 2020. So the company will have to pay their tax liability every month, not on 31st of July. Okay? So, but remember that what they are paying now is based on an estimate, not actual. When would you know your actual tax liability? 31st of December? Bila you kira your tax com? Bila you nak submit? Bila you submit? 31st of July. Mana 31st July? You submit kat sini. 31st of July 2020, isn't it? So maknanya by 31st of July, you have paid all installment payment for YA 2019. Right? This one you submit for YA 2019 by 31st of July. When you submitted, you actually have paid all your estimate, which was the last payment was on 15 January 2020. Right? And then you start paying for YA 2020 already. So in this case means that, but when you submit, then you actually do your tax computation. Then you actually compute, okay, your income, your expenses, do adjustment, capital allowance, all your statutory income, your aggregate income, donation, losses, everything. Then you come to your total liability. That is your actual, right, tax liability. How much have you paid? Right? Assuming that your actual tax liability is 170,000. Let's say. How much have you paid? 102,000. Ada balance tak kena bayar? Adalah. Because what you have estimated is below your actual tax liability. So in this case, how much is that? 68,000? 68,000. You have to come up by 31st of July. Means that upon submission of your tax return, you have to come up with 68,000 ringgit to pay your inland revenue board. And that is not a small amount. Yeah? And if you don't pay, penalty. Right? Okay. Talking about penalty, the requirement number 1, if you fail to estimate, right? If you fail to submit and estimate your RB within 1 month or 1 month before the start of your basis period, penalty. If you fail to come up with, if you pay to pay installment payment, penalty. If you pay later, after 15, penalty. So all this is a cost. So that's why company, they really have to know their obligations. Otherwise, they have to pay unnecessarily cost. Yeah. So that's why most of the company, because in order for them to concentrate on their business, at the same time they have to fulfill these obligations, right? And not many people actually understand taxation. So that's why they have to hire tax agent, right, to help them with their tax obligation. So tax agent will have to remind the company lah every month, right, to pay to inland revenue board. So some companies, when that was 20 years ago, right? So what company do is that they will issue a post-dated check on a monthly basis. So post-dated check for the installment payments, for example, they akan bagi 12 checks, each check 8,500 ringgit and dated 15th of every month. So what they do is that every month tax agent will have to bring the check to Inland Revenue Board, pusat pungutan dekat Jalan Duta, and make payment on behalf of the client. Alright, but now I'm not sure because it's already under online banking. Right, company can actually do that now. Right, we don't have to bother ourselves unnecessarily, alright, to monitor pula dia punya payment every month. Okay, so in practice that's how it is. Right, so it means that by right, when you submit your tax return, your form C, then you have to pay additional tax liability of 68,000. Okay, and this 68,000, alright, that's a law. It says that, alright. So let's look at on page what page is it? Penalties. Yeah. On 4.0, we have section we talk about penalties or for underestimate. Yeah. Penalty on underestimate of income tax payable. So it says that underestimate, kalau you overestimate is okay. Underestimate means that your estimate is below your actual tax liability. So it means that you underestimate. Is it right or wrong? Depends. Alright, is it okay to underestimate? Depends. The law says that a company, trust body or cooperative society is given 2 opportunities to revise its tax estimate in the 6th month, 9th month or in both the months. Right? A 10% penalty will be imposed on the excess of 30% difference between the original estimate or the revised estimate and the actual tax payable upon the submission of the return. The RB held that the company should voluntarily remit the 10% penalty due when submitting their tax return, and the submission of return is deemed notice of assessment. Okay, so let's go back to our example here. Will you be penalized? Okay, remember that. Can you see this very clearly, or you want me to write it down again? Clear, eh? Alright. So your actual is 170,000. Your estimate is 102. And the difference is 68,000. Would you be penalized or not? It depends. If the difference, which is the 68,000, right? So that 68,000, let me rewrite here. Okay, what was the actual? 170,000. Estimate, in this case you do not estimate, you do not revise your estimate, and it was 102,000. And then there's a difference of 68,000 between the actual and the estimate. So the law says that if the difference is more than 30% of your actual tax liability. So what is your actual? It's 170,000, yeah? So you take 30% of actual. Because you want to check. 30% of your actual is, how much is that? 51,000. Okay? So you have to compare. So this one is this, right? 30% of your actual is 51,000. So now you have to see, is the difference more than 30% of your actual? So your 30% of actual is 51,000. Difference is 68,000. Is it more? Yes, it's more. So in this case, how much is the difference? 7 and 1. 17,000. What is that 17,000? We call it as excess. Right? Excess of what? Excess of 30%. Yeah, because that 70,000 is the excess of your estimate, means that it's the excess above or of your actual estimate. Yeah, so it means that the 70,000 is the excess over 30% of your actual. So the difference is 68,000. 30% of your actual is 51,000. So here the excess. But if for example, right, your 30% of your actual is 70,000. Is that an excess? No. No excess. But if there is an excess, then you'll be penalized. How much is the penalty? 10% of the excess. How much is that then? 1,700. That's the penalty only. Why you penalize? Because your estimate is more than your estimate is you're underestimate by more than 30% of your actual tax liability. Because of that, you are being penalized 10% of the excess. Yeah. So then the question next is, how much you have to pay to RB when you submit your Form C? How much you have to pay to RB when you submit your Form C? Excess? How much is the excess? 70,000 only?
No, 68.
You have to pay 68,000, right? Because why? Your actual is 170, alright? You only have paid based on the estimate 102. So you still have to pay 68,000 plus your penalty. So plus 68,000, then you have to pay total berapa? 69,700 is the amount due to the government by, when should you pay to RB? By 31st of July 2020. Okay? So again, you have to come up with the estimate, but the estimate, if the estimate is the estimate is very low, means that you underestimate, and the excess, the difference between your actual and your estimate is more than 30% of your actual, then you'll be penalized. How much is the penalty? 10% of the excess. Okay. So how can we avoid from being penalized? Okay, so of course remember that the company has to come with the estimate 1 month before start of business. Things happen. Good things, bad things happen. If good things happen, maybe your actual will be very high compared to the estimate. Or maybe of the economic breakdown, right? For example, now COVID-19, right? Business are doing very bad, right? But of course it's too late lah kalau nak cakap pasal YA 2020. You're talking now, right? Now is assuming that year-end company is 31st of December. Now is March, right? So the law allows company, right? Sama for 5 number 6, you can revise apa? Your estimate. Alright? Revise estimate bila? In the 6th month or in the 9th month or both months. Okay? So kalau you kata year end is 31st of December, your 6th month is, you start basic period 1st January, your 6th month would be in June. So kalau you nak revise, you kena revise in June. Or kalau tak nak revise in June, bila you boleh revise? September. Can you revise both? Yes, you can revise in June or revise balik in September. Alright? And remember that when you revise, you kena bayar tax agent tau. Then you have to pay more lah if you revise twice. Alright? But if there is a necessary, alright, because we do not want to pay that 10% underestimate, alright? So we may want to revise your estimate. So we are given 2 times, whether in the 6th month or in the 9th month or in the both month. So what happens is that when you revise, then rather than you compare your actual dengan you punya estimate, you can compare that with your revised amount. Right? Maybe your revised amount is berapa you actually 170, katalah you revise to 150. Okay? So rather than based on estimate, you revise your estimate to become 170,000. Okay? 50,000 lah. Okay? So the difference here is 20,000. Is 20,000 more than 51,000? No. So bila dia tak ada excess, tak adalah liability. Kan? So the revise could be in the 6th month, or katalah you buat 2 revision. First revision is in the 6th month and second revision in the 9th month. So you have to refer this revised estimate to the latest one. Alright, so it's either in the 6th month or the 9th month, or if you revise both, then you have to refer to the 9th month lah. Okay. Is that clear? So what happened is that, remember that first kita come on the estimate, then kita decide how much monthly payment, 8,500 ringgit, and then kita revise back in the 6th month. Let's assume that there's only one revision, which is in the 6th month. Okay? So what happened? Number one tadi berapa tadi? Estimate is 102,000, right? For YA 2019. Okay. Number two, monthly payment berapa? Monthly installment is 8,500. You have to show me the working lah. 102,000 divided by 12. What happened kalau you punya estimate ni dah cut wrong? You pergi ambil your accountant amount tadi. Alright, the 80,000. So your installment monthly salah. Bye-bye. Okay? Alright. So monthly installment 8,500. So when you start paying? February. Betul? March. By bila? 15. By 15 March. April, May and June. 15, 15, 15, 15 and 15. How much you pay? 8,500. Okay? You submit and then 8,500 berapa bulan dah bayar? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How much you have paid? For 5 months. Okay. And then in the 6th month, which is in June, you revise. You revise your taxcom to 150,000. Okay? So bila you revise in June, alright? Because bila you revise, it's not immediately that you revise hari ni, esok RB is set. Not necessarily, because you have to submit your revision to RB and they have to accept that revision. So that's why even though you actually revise in June, we always advise client to pay installment for the June. So that's why we always assume that installment for the June month paid. We consider that we pay installment for June even though you revise in June. So now when you revise to 150,000, right? Initially it was 102,000, now increase to 150,000. What is your implication? The implication is on the amount of the installment payment. It's no longer 8,500. So you have to come up for July. How much nak bayar? What is your monthly installment for your July onwards? Because why? Your estimate now changed from 102,000 to 150,000. So how to compute that? You know that now you revise to new amount 150,000. Are you going to divide that by 12? No, because you already have paid. How much? You paid already 8,500 for 5 months. And how many remaining months? 5 months. Maknanya bawah mesti 7. You ada 12 months installment kan? 7 plus 5 is 12 months. So what you do is that compute lah. How much is the new installment payment? How much is that? 15357. 7,000? 15,000 now? Are you sure? Okay, you buat 8,500 times 5 dulu.
42,500.
Okay, ni dah bayar 42,500. So now 150 minus 42,500 divide by 7. 15,000 lah. So ni lah 15357 dot dot 0.14. So it means that this is the new monthly installment for the next 7 months. It means that from July, August, September, October, November, December, January, you akan bayar 15,000 each month. Kenapa dia naik daripada 8,005? Because estimate pun dah naik. Ya, daripada 102,000 naik 150,000. right? Because of, but you have to consider that you already have paid 42,500, so that's why the balance 7 months you're going to pay for 15,357. Okay. Would you have to pay 0.14? It depends, right? Because when you submit RB, I can issue notification, right? Notification of the monthly payment for the, so sometimes they buat 0.14, but sometimes more of the time they akan buat 00. Contoh ya, 00, 000, and the final month tu dia akan buat balance. But for exam purpose, kita akan buat 0.14. Ya, in practical normally the 00 kat belakang. Okay, so that's your revision. So whenever there's a revision, you have to come up with a new computation for your installment payment. So in this case, now you say that, alright, you come up with the estimate, you come up with the monthly installment payment, you pay monthly installment 8,500 per month, every month by the 15th of each month, and then you revise in the 6th month, then you come up with a new installment payment based on the revision amount. Then, assuming that there's no other revision, then you have to compare your actual and your estimate. So in this case, there's no liability, there's no penalty because your difference between your actual and your revised estimate is less than 30% of your actual. No penalty. Is there any balance of tax liability? Yes. You still have to pay 12RB, but its amount is only 20,000. Okay. What else? What else? Okay. So that covers the topic for today. Okay. Should we go through the textbook before we go into the tutorial question, so that okay, let's see how many pages? 5 pages again. Okay, let's see from the very beginning. It talks about the liability of a company under self-assessment system. See, here it says that the estimate of the tax payable must be, for a YA, must not be less than, so at least 85% of the estimate or revised estimate of the income tax payable for the immediately preceding year. Tapi tak boleh highlight. Is that clear? So you may want to highlight that in your textbook. And then it say about the administration. Now, because there's an online filing, right, you can submit your estimate online as well. Right, you can submit that through eCP204 via easyhasil.gov.my. So who is actually submitting this? The employer, the company, right? Not the individual, not the employees. So the company has to submit CP204, right? And these are the information you have to provide in the CP204: name and address, income tax reference number, registration number, tax estimate for the current year, accounting year end and basis period, commencement date for new company, computation of monthly installments, and withholding tax obligation, if there is any, for your non-resident company, and year of assessment. Alright, what if you do not submit? Alright, a company shall be liable to 200 to 20,000 ringgit fine or imprisonment of not more than 6 months or both. Okay. So, and then DG practice is that it will issue once they receive CP204, the RB will issue back CP205, right, to taxpayer, informing the estimated tax to be paid for that particular YA. So most of the time, or if you fulfill that at least 85%, RB will just accept your estimate, no question. Yeah, so you just divide by 12, then you should know already your monthly installment. Payment of monthly, then you say that it has to be every month for 12 months starting from the 2nd month, and the payment must be on the 15th alright, will be due on the 15th. So don't pay on the 15th, pay earlier than that. Alright, because if happen that on the 15th, to maybe if you go to liability board, you want to queue, maybe it's a very long queue. If you go for e-filing on the 15th, all companies want to pay on the 15th, then you can assume, you can expect some issues or problem with the system, right? Because if you fail, right, to pay by the 15th, you can't tell them, oh, the computer is not working or the system is out, right? Because you will be penalized 10% of the installment payment. So assuming that the installment payment per month is 8,500, then 10% of that 850 ringgit already. So you have to pay 8,500 plus 850. And that penalty is assumed to be voluntarily paid. If you know that it's after 15, then you have to automatically add on 10% on the payment. Yeah. So again, the 12 months period, the second month you start on the second month, it depends. Alright, just like for example, if your year end is 31st January, means that it start on second month. Year end 31st January means that first month is February. March is the second month. So you have to pay by second month by the 15th. Right? Installment ends on the 15th of February. So because all companies have different year end. But of course, most company year end is December, June, March, and January. Right? Then you can refer to this, we get to the different year end, the beginning of the installment payment, and when it stops. Revision, we have gone through that you'll be penalized 30%. So that's why you revise. Right? Company, whether you revise or not, right? If it's below 30%, or oh sorry, the excess is more than 30%, you will be penalized automatically. Yeah. E-notification is that a company shall furnish its income tax estimate or revise. So bila dia revise to the CP204A, A for amendment. Yeah, because you revise your estimate. So you can submit online or you can submit manually. From what in 2018, you can submit electronic. Alright. Penalty, we have gone through this 30% penalty. The original estimate, although there is no amendment to the estimate, a company is obliged to revise upward either in the 6 or 9. Failure to do so will expose company to penalty of underestimate. Submission of return, you have to submit within 7 months your Form C. Yeah, so when you submit, then you know what is your actual tax liability. Notice of assessment. Upon you submit your Form C, alright, previously, alright, the liability board, when you submit, they will issue notice of assessment. So based on the notice of assessment, you have to pay to RB within 30 days from the date of the notice. But now under self-assessment system, it's deemed that 31st July, which is the 7th month, right? If it's 31st of July, that will be deemed the date of submission. So you are given 1 month from 31st of July to settle your tax liability, isn't it? To deem to have made an assessment on the chargeable income as shown in the return on the day return is submitted to pusat pemprosesan. He is not required to do anything further. The return submitted is deemed to be not. Oh, sorry, Alright. Correction. Under self-assessment system, 31st of July, when you submit, alright, is deemed to be notice of assessment. Alright, the Form C that you submitted is deemed to be notice of assessment. It means that your tax payment is also deemed on the same day. Isn't it? Right, tak ada 30 days kan? Previously you are given 30 days, but now because of the e-filing, everything is deemed to be on the same day. But you can still appeal, alright, for the time limit. So most of the time, as a tax agent, alright, we have so many companies here end 31st of December. The most, alright. So what we do is that we will apply to Inland Revenue Board to submit later. We call it as EOT, extension of time. So normally you are given 2 weeks for submit. Rather than 31st of July, you can submit by 14th of August. So kalau orang test after August baru dia free. After second week of August, then only okay, dah habis peak period. Right, because you have submitted all your tax returns. Alright, and then you appeal time limit is still within 30 days of the making of an assessment. Means that katalah you nak appeal, alright, you disagree whatever amount, for example, you can still appeal but must be within 30 days. The company wishes to object to the tax treatment. It would be advisable to lodge an objection in a general appeal letter on the same day of the filing of return. Might well apply under self-assessment system. Alright, the tax cannot afford to submit return on audacious basis. Can you amend? Once you submit your Form C, can you amend? Yes. Alright, yes. Alright, for effective 2009, taxpayer is allowed to amend their tax return within 6 months from the date of submission, and the amended return shall specify the additional amount of chargeable income. The additional amount of income, the particulars of this, alright, and then the late payment penalty. The taxpayer is, however, allowed to amend their return once only, and the submission of the amended return is deemed as notice of assessment. Any tax and penalty shall be due and payable to the tax authority. So of course you can amend, alright, but the amendment should only result in a higher tax liability. Alright, it means that there's unreported income, for example. You have not declared, for example, your business income from business 2, for example. Yeah, so because of that, they will have a higher chargeable income. There's an increase of chargeable income. There's an additional amount of income tax payable. So, but it means that if your revision will lead to a lower tax liability. Katalah, oh, hari tu lupa nak claim donation, baru nak claim donation. So, bila you claim donation, then you will have a lower chargeable income, lower tax liability. Can you do that? No. So, means that kalau you nak revise because of akan bawa lower tax liability, forget it. Right? You cannot revise your tax returns. Alright, and final payment of income tax. The difference between the income tax and the installment paid is payable on the last day of the 7th month. See? Even though you submit on 30th of June, alright, it means that you still have until 31st of July to make payment. Alright, accounting, the final balance need to be settled in the 7th month from the accounting year end. Otherwise, penalty of 10% plus 5%. What it means is that if you are late, there have to be penalty of 10%. Late another month, another 5%. So dia orang kata accumulated, yeah. Penalty on monthly installment, I mentioned 10%. Example given. Okay, commencement of business. Alright, for a company who has just commenced business, baru kan, so normally income pun tak ada lagi. So what happens is that whereas ME company first commence business, the company is not required, alright, to estimate. They are not required to pay monthly income tax payable on the 15th of each month. Alright, for that YA and the immediately following YA. Alright, means that if you commence business in YA 2019, you don't have to submit estimate for 2019 and 2020 as well. If there is no basis period for YA, the advantage above is granted for the immediately two following YA. And the company, event company has no basis period, then no estimate is needed. Okay, alright, do that. Tax estimate, comments on your company. We are done. Okay, so how much time do we take? 50? Ada lagi 30 minutes. But it's okay. I want to look into the tutorial question. Can we just have a look at the tutorial question? Ada kelas ke? Lepas you ada kelas. Okay. We pause sekejap. Kita pause ke stop? Pause. Boleh? Tak boleh?